Thank you. Actually didn't have a prepared speech. I thought we were working on Q&A, but that's fine. I'll make something up as I go. Maybe just talk for a couple of minutes around Rio Tinto and how we think about engagement with Aboriginal community in terms of creating commercial opportunities. I think the first is a values-based point in terms of how we think and what is the values of us as an organisation. And we think first about creating a licence to operate in any place that we work around the planet, any country. And we do engage with a lot of Indigenous communities. And it goes beyond just that licence to operate. And now, the way Rio Tinto talks, we talk about earning a privilege to operate in every environment. And I think if you start with that cultural element and the values of who you are as human beings, I think that's a good place to start in terms of how you think about creating commercial opportunities across your business. I think what are probably the three ways or the three lenses that Rio Tinto views its engagement with Indigenous communities. The first would be through employment, the second would be through procurement, and the third would be the health of the general community in which we operate. From the point of view of employment, we believe that the employee base inside any of our organisations should reflect the ethnicity, the diversity of the community in which we operate. So we feel poorly, we would beat ourselves up a little bit if we didn't have the same employment ratios, particularly with Indigenous employment, in terms of the communities in which we operate. And in large place, I think in terms of the Northern Territory, in Western Australia, in the Cape York, I think that often we would actually exceed the percentages of Indigenous people in those communities. So we pride ourselves on that firstly. I think it's beyond a numbers game though, because often we start to think about getting the numbers up in terms of Aboriginal employment, but we forget about the quality of that employment. We forget about the fact that we need to get people from the shop floor in terms of where they come in through trainees, through apprenticeships, but we actually need to create leaders, we need to create superintendents and managers and general managers, and hopefully one day CEOs of our company that reflect the ethnicity of our organisation. So we need to do a lot more coaching and mentoring, and this is an area where we are starting to improve our performance by ensuring that we've got the quality of that Aboriginal employment that's well beyond just the shop floor employees. So it's not a numbers game. In terms of procurement, I think we're getting better and better in terms of how we think about procurement. Probably the essence is actually to have and allow yourself enough time to plan for any procurement activity. Often we as organisations, we rush these processes, and when you rush a process, you don't have the time to actually do the participation planning that's required to ensure great Indigenous outcomes. So it does take time to get a good Indigenous outcome. The second element is that we do need to, in the contracts for our procurement, and particularly for large procurement contracts, we need to have the companies that we purchase from, particularly large contracts, to have the same courage, the same values that we do as an organisation, and they have to have the same participation arrangements and plans to ensure success in terms of them also having the same demographics inside their organisation for the country that we operate on. It is still a little bit of a numbers game in terms of holding people to account around measurement. We need to measure the people that we buy from to ensure that they are meeting some minimum targets and minimum levels, and if they aren't, then that is a basis for having a conversation and maybe looking for other procurement alternatives. Of course, we need to, in procurement, ensure that wherever there's an opportunity that we give best advantage and coach and support and mentor businesses in our community as well. So that's an important part of that. I suppose the last element I'll talk about is we do really like to see the health of the community that we operate in. So it's beyond just procurement, it's beyond just employment. If we don't have a healthy community in which we operate, and we as the individuals that are operating in that environment aren't part of that community and want to be part of that community, then we're not going to have success. And so, for example, the Garma Corporation negotiation around the supply of bauxite into our mine is a success both on a commercial level, but also encouraging the success and the health of the region in which we operate. So with that, I may finish off, but thank you very much. Thank you.